know your ass better call somebody.
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city sand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park. Fans drift in jerseys, legacy bold. The Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channel and on X. As the New York Mets won yesterday on Saturday 12-6, and the offense finally showed a pulse. The New York Mets continue to have issues in the starting rotation department, and we will definitely talk about all that stuff on the show today. And of course, the rubber game today, Mets Giants at Citi Field, as the Mets are looking to win a series at home, as they finally actually stop their losing streak and continue, hopefully, to win more games and win more series as the Mets face the Guardians after this Giants series. So hit that like button, guys. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. And here we are, guys, right? The reason why I've been called Mr. Negative is because I've talked about the starting rotation while everybody spoke about the Mets offense. The difference is the reinforcements, or the lack thereof, and this rotation as we currently see it and will be for the rest of the season. And again, how many more games are we going to wait for a prospect to come up, pitching prospect to come up, right? You can't wait until game 23 when there's 23 games left of the season to bring up a top prospect. It just doesn't make sense. Do it now or do it never, right? There's a couple of TBDs. In the Guardian series, obviously, I threw Manaea on all the names on the right in the next series because there's a possibility that he might not pitch tomorrow and they might switch around his days off to give him maybe an extra day. And also, the other two games in the series are TBD. Now, maybe that's a sign of them bringing up one of the prospects. We'll see. And Rock, that is Matt Harvey's shirt from, I don't even know, 2014, 15, I don't know, 2013. I don't remember what year it was. But yeah, it was a long time ago. Yes, I still got it. And it's still in pretty good shape. So maybe they are bringing up one of the kids. I mean, I'd be shocked if they bring up two of the kids, even though I'd be okay with that because, I mean, you can't go worse than what you currently have. Like, and again, Juan, this is not about the 4 runs. This is what people don't understand. People don't seem to get that going 4 innings is a lot worse than giving up 4 runs. If he went 6 innings and gave up 4 runs, you at least keep yourself in the ball game while giving your team a little bit of length to protect the bullpen, right? I said this for a while. The problem isn't the guys in the bullpen, the names, how good they are or how bad they might be. I don't care if you got, and the Mets do have that now. They got very good relievers from about 5 guys you can count on saying, you know what, I trust these guys. But what is the point of trusting guys when you're going to constantly use them so much? This is the problem about trying to get a super bullpen at the trade deadline. Like, you also have to have starting pitching to supplement that. That is the problem. Forget about the 4 runs. Like, forget about the 4 runs with Kodai Senga. Because if he went 6 innings, it wouldn't be so bad. All right, he didn't have his greatest stuff, but he kept the team in the ball game. And while he did that, he gave length. The problem with Kodai Senga is that he gave up the 4 runs and provided no length. This is 3 starts in a row that he gives you 4 innings or less. This is a constant issue because of the fact that now, if he's had a couple of bad stretches of 3 games and he's coming up on regular starts and he's pitching every 5th day and only getting 4 days off, all right, it's a bad stretch. But when you give him an extra day off, sometimes an extra 2 days off, when he pitches, he needs to throw 90 to 100 pitches and get his ass into the 6th innings by any means necessary. You can't keep on throwing 4 to 5 pitchers every day. It just doesn't work. The only time in the Mets don't do that is when David Peterson's on the mound. And I'm glad SNY finally put up a stat that showed in the last 42 games. Now, this is more than a month. The last 42 games, David Peterson, 6.3 innings per start. That's his average. The rest of the rotation, 4.2. That is not going to cut it. I said this for a while. This is why if they bring up the kids, what is the difference? You're going to make a guy pitch good. If the kid pitches good, guess what? He's coming out after 80 pitches? 4 innings if he doesn't have quick innings? Like, what does that solve? All that does, this is what this is going to do. They're going to bring up probably one of the pitching prospects. It's going to shut up the fans. And then everybody's going to be okay with it. But yet they're going to take them out early. They're going to have a pitch count and they're going to have an innings limit. That is what you want going down the stretch when you're fighting for a division. That's the problem. This is why you had to get a starting pitcher. I don't care who it was. It needed to be somebody solid. Somebody that you could throw in the middle of this rotation and say, I can give this guy every 5th day and he can give me innings and put up a quality start. Like, people are obsessed with Senga's ERA. And of course his ERA is going to be low and it's not going to jump that much. He doesn't pitch any innings. That is the problem, guys. You got to wake up and smell the goddamn coffee. You really have to. Like, we got to stop. And Mike, nobody should have been blaming the bullpen from day one. Go back, I swear to you guys, I was in a Houston hotel on March 28th when I was doing the first pregame with my boy Chris, who will be back very, very soon. I said it from day one as we were breaking down and as we found out the day before that Clay Holmes is going to be the opening day starter, right? I was already annoyed at that. But I complained about this rotation from day one. People were way too cocky about this rotation, especially when Manaea was hurt. Now, I'm not saying that Manaea is not going to, build up his strength and end up being a very good pitcher. And I'm not thinking about pitching him like he did last year, but close to that, which will be fine. But last time I checked, when you get into the playoffs, if you only rely on 2 starters, you're going to be very much in trouble. Now, that super bullpen could come into play when we get into the playoffs. It could be a huge difference. Absolutely. But during the season, if we got, 52 games left here? If you're going to constantly get guys to go 4, hopefully 5 innings, you're using 4 to 5 guys, maybe more, depending on if somebody pitches bad in the bullpen, where you have to take them out quickly. You can use 4, 5, or 6 guys in a bullpen on a consistent basis. So the next 52 games, you can overuse your bullpen. By the time that it get into the playoffs, who cares about a super bullpen? It does not help. It does not help. Yes, Peter, go back. Just everybody, the only people that people cared about was the offense. And the reason why I never concerned myself about the offense, because they can put up runs. When have we seen consistent length from our rotation? Never. And don't give me April don't give me May, because it was way too early in the season. Because they did it for 1 month and then we forget about the other 3 months of the season. Because April, they were taking them out early because they had to protect their innings, which is understandable. Everybody does that. Maybe even their first 2 or 3 starts. But after that, You can't be protecting their innings. It doesn't make sense. You're protecting their innings because they can't do it. Kodai Senga can't do it. Clay Holmes can't do it. Frankie Montas isn't a very good pitcher, but he is so necessary for this rotation because even if he's not pitching well, he can still throw 6 innings. That is the problem. That's the problem that I continue to talk about with this rotation. That's why I get upset and why it's so annoying that people only talk about the offense, yet the fact that they can put up 12 runs at any given day. But I'm very confident that if it's not David Peterson on the mound, we're getting 5 innings or less. Like, there's more of a guarantee that you're going to get 5 innings or less from your starters other than Peterson than the offense not scoring 12 runs. Like, we got to stop. Like, when are we going to understand this? When we lose in the playoffs? And the big reason why is the rotation, again, because last year, it ended up being the rotation that became the biggest problem because the offense was scoring runs. They were doing what they were having to do. The bullpen was actually pretty decent. It was the starting pitching that was the problem. If you even look in that Philly series, the Mets pitching pitched pretty decent, but they weren't that good. They were fine in the wild card, but once they got to the DS, you can tell they were struggling. And then when they got to the NLCS, they had nothing left. Why? Because they had to overuse everybody from starters to bullpen, because of the fact that they were fighting for a spot in the playoffs for the entire season. And when they got to the point where it was most important, they fell apart. And in a situation here where you're protecting these guys at every corner of the atmosphere, because that's what everybody's doing, they're protecting them. The Mets are protecting them way too much that when they actually need them to go deeper and longer into games and need to pitch better with the length of the games and let them go a little bit deeper, they haven't done it all season, if at all. Maybe once, 2 or 3 times, and then what happens? They don't prove anything. They be a complete disaster, and that is the problem. No, Mike, but see, this is the thing. The guys last year, a lot of these guys were professional pitchers that pitched for a while as a starter, right? Minaya, Severino. The biggest problem with Severino was health, right? It wasn't about pitching him. And again, he hasn't pitched in a lot of innings in a long time. But again, they didn't protect them last year. They tried to, but when you started to win a little bit, guess what happened? Because they did a very good job. Like, if you look last year, they pitched a hell of a lot more innings, and that was without Kodai Senga. They pitched a lot more innings than they are this year. Why? Because you brought in guys. You got rid of Luis Severino, who can be an innings guy. Sean Minaya, he got hurt. So is that going to keep him stronger for the rest of the season? Well, okay, maybe, but nobody really knows. What happens when we start pushing him later in this month into September, and he's going 5, 6, or trying to go 5, 6 or 7 innings? More often than not when they're trying to push him and he can't do it. What are we going to say then? Oh, maybe it was his mechanical change that he made last year that is constantly getting him into trouble when it comes to possible injury or even fatigue. Yeah, well, and I said that too. But you know what? We didn't trade our top 7 prospects, so give him a standing ovation. Yeah, but George, it's not about wine. The fact of the matter is, I talked about this problem the whole season. Everybody wanted to focus on the offense. Go right ahead. Because the offense can score 12 runs at any given moment. There is no confidence in me about the rotation at all. I've said this for a while. Why? They got a bullpen. Great. So overuse the bullpen in the next 52 games, and then when they're tired in the playoffs, you need your rotation who can't go deep at all. Now you're going to try to push them in the playoffs to go deep. And it's not going to work. Now, hopefully, with enough bullpen arms, we might not completely destroy them. But we'll see. We will see. Like, the prospect hugging is becoming, it trickles into the David Stearns mantra now. Where a lot of fans were, basically dry humping these prospects. And David Stearns is basically doing what I said he was going to do, where he made good moves in the bullpen. But nobody's complaining more about the starting pitching more than me because it is a problem. Like Kodai Senga gets pitches on his 6th day every time out. Sometimes he gets an extra day and pitches on his 7th day. So he basically pitches every 6th or 7th day. They try to give him extra days off at every given moment. Yet, why is he going deeper into games? Why is he pitching 95 to 100 pitches? What's the problem with that? I'm going to tell you what's the problem with that. They know he can't do it consistently and good. That's why. If he's so good, and Mets fans, go back to the first game of the season when we did the pregame, they were calling Kodai Senga the ace. And oh, by the way, he didn't pitch in that series, right? He didn't pitch until game 4 of the season. If he is your ace, why not pitch him in the first series of the year? Yeah, but Mike, here's the difference. NBA players could turn it on at a drop of a dime. You can't tell a starting pitcher who hasn't gone deep more than 3 or 4 times this year to say, okay, go out there and pitch. They can leave him out there. That doesn't mean he's going to be good. They're not even good in 4 innings. That's the problem. Like, they're not good in 4 innings. You think they're going to be good for 6 innings? Like, that doesn't make no sense. It doesn't work like that in baseball. Like, we don't get that. And again, we are royally screwed if one of these prospects don't come up and pitch well. Number one, that's the first thing he has to do. But number two, if the Mets are going to have restrictions on the kid that comes up, and I'm talking about pitch count and innings limit, then why bring him up? So he can pitch really good 4 innings and then take him out of the ball game with 85 pitches and not leave him in a ball game when he's dominating? Because that's what's going to happen. You think they're going to jeopardize this kid for next year or the year before after that? Like, they don't ultimately care enough what happens this year as long as it doesn't hurt them for next year or the year after that. Stearns has already proven that. He talks about this sustained success nonsense that is the funniest thing because nothing's given. Okay? Nothing. If you can be the best team in baseball, the Rangers won the World Series and they missed the playoffs last year. It can happen that quickly, guys. Like, let's not act like sustained success is like a guarantee. It's not. Like, I just don't understand why everybody's so, like, everybody believes this nonsense. Like, there's barely a handful. You can count on one hand teams that have sustained success. Like 99% of the time, the Yankees make the playoffs. The Dodgers make the playoffs. Right? And where do we go after that? Where do we go after that? Who's been constantly making the playoffs sustained and it has sustained success? It's just not common. I don't care how much money you spend or how good you think you are or how smart you think you are. Because the smartest people in the room, like David Stearns thinks he is, the Brewers are doing it without him. The Brewers never had the best record in baseball when he was running the team. Now they have it. Now, it's not the money spent. It's not David Stearns running that team. Right? So what is it? So it's more random than not. And if you're spending that much money like the Mets are, you shouldn't have to worry about being smarter than everybody else when it comes to roster manipulation, spending less money on pitching, building up a farm system. You seem to not want to get rid of any of your top 7 to make yourself better this year. Right? It doesn't matter. If you should be having sustained success with this type of payroll, regardless of what you have in a farm system, because the Padres, you think they care about their farm system? They're a very high payroll, and they got rid of basically 85% of their best players in their farm system. You know why? Because they're trying to win. And by no means am I saying the Padres are just going to go do it. Like, they don't have a World Series championship in their history. So, but at least they're doing something about it. Like, I'm all on board with bringing up the kids. But if you, and this is the problem that, look, Acuna is back down because he has he can't play anywhere. Like, that's the problem. That's stupidity. The roster construction doesn't make sense for what they're doing with this roster. It doesn't. From the rotation, from the bullpen to the lineup, it just doesn't make sense. Like, we got to stop acting like this isn't a problem. Like, sustained success should come with your payroll. And yeah, occasionally drop in a prospect or two that might help down the stretch, which other teams seem to do, but the Mets are scared too. Our worst rotation problems were in June, yet they were afraid to bring up any of the top pitching prospects. Why is it that it's okay to bring up the pitching prospects now, but not in June when you desperately needed them? When there was injuries. But everybody's not injured. Everybody's healthy. So why are you bringing up the pitchers, in prospect pitchers, if you're so confident in your rotation? Because you're not. That's why. So read between the lines a little bit, guys. In June, when we basically had two pitchers going in this rotation, and the Davinskis of the world, and the Waddells, and the Hagemans, all those guys, there was three guys in our farm system that were just pitching lights out. At least two of them in AAA, in McLean and Sproat. Why not bring them up in your biggest need in June so you didn't have to go through that big rut? But now it's okay. David Stearns can bring up the pitchers now. Wait, what's the difference? You have all your pitchers healthy. So what's your problem? Oh, they're not very good. Oh, whose fault is that? David Stearns. Now he's gonna take all the pressure and all the eyes on David Stearns and put it towards the prospects that come up. So the pressure can be on Sproat and McLean. And then everybody stops talking about Stearns because everybody's going, oh, look, he brought up the prospects. That's great. But in June, when they desperately needed him, the eyes weren't really on Stearns. It was like, hey, we're injured. What are we going to do? When he could have done that and fixed it, or at least tried to fix it internally. And you had a whole month of June to see if these guys are worth anything. And if they pitch well, great, keep them up. If not, send them back down and let them develop more. But at least you have an idea coming into the trade deadline if you can use them after the trade deadline. We have no idea how these guys are going to pitch, and we have no way out. At least in June, you can see what they can do, see how developed they are as pitchers. So when the trade deadline comes, you have an idea of what these guys could actually be. Because right now, it's a big question mark. In the biggest time of the year, in the last 2 months of the season. So don't tell me that Stearns did a good job here. I like what he did with the bullpen. But starting pitching was steep. Everybody knew it was going to be expensive. If you didn't, you're an idiot. So we're going into August and September now. We're 52 games left into the season, yet the prospects are not up yet. Now, is there a possibility that during the Guardian series, because it is 2 games that are TBD, I put Manaea straight down the list on the next series because they could give him an extra day, so he might not pitch tomorrow. He might pitch Tuesday, so I just threw it down the list. But 2 out of the 3 games are TBD. Manaea is pitching one of them. So that's where they could do it. But again, how long are we going to wait here? What are you going to do it on the road? Oh yeah, let's throw these kids on the road. Why not? Like, put them at home. Let the energy of the fans get behind them. Yeah, Mr. McGregor, I agree with you. He did a great job with the bullpen. But we always lacked starting pitching. Like, that was from day one. He didn't fix the biggest problem of this team. Like, getting Cedric Mullins was smart because you fix your center field situation offensively. But ultimately, nothing's going to matter with this lineup if the top 4 doesn't do their job. So he wasn't getting Eugenio Suarez here. But even still, if the 4 guys at the top don't do the job, this team is not winning. I don't care if Cedric Mullins looks like an MVP candidate the next 52 games. He's not going to make a tremendous difference if those guys aren't going to perform. That's the problem. This rotation is what it is. That's why bringing those kids up in June, when you had all those injuries, made the most sense. Because you get to see them. You get to see if these guys are ready. Is there pitchers fooling big league hitters, not AAA players? which a lot of people seem to do. You could have brought them up, see what they have, see how they pitch. Are their pitchers fooling big league hitters? And then you have a better idea of what you could do if you weren't able to overspend for a top 3 starting pitcher. And then you feel a little bit more confident and say, okay, I see what these guys can do in June. I'm more confident now that I can use them in August and September. But we don't know. And if they fail, we're back to square one. We're back to square one, and there's no other way to help. Like, this is the problem. If these guys don't work out, at least this year, not saying they're not going to be good next year or really good over the next couple of years in McLean and Sproat and Tong. But if they don't pitch well now, who do you think's replacing them? The McGills, the Blackburns. And you're stuck with this rotation going into the playoff and going down the stretch. Nobody's fault but David Stearns. He put this rotation together. He was afraid to bring up these prospects in June when it mattered the most, when it was necessary. He's bringing up the prospects now to take all the attention off of him about the starting pitcher. That's what he's doing. So Met fans who are brainwashed by him are going to say, well, he brought up the prospects. Yeah, in not a moment of need, because technically all our pitchers are healthy. So it's not really need. You needed them in June. The need to bring them up is to have you save face. That's why. Because now you can basically say to fans, well, I tried out my option internally. That's what he's going to say if it doesn't work out. But if they don't work out, you're going back to the same rotation that's giving you problems the entire year. Yeah, just completely understand that. But you know what? The Dodgers keep on spending money on pitchers, on professional pitchers. And I know they get hurt, but you know what? There's going to be at least 2 or 3 of them that are going to be able to pitch in the playoffs, because that's what always happens. Like, these guys get a couple of injuries. They don't pitch half the year. They come back in the playoffs and they pitch when it ultimately matters the most. Guys that you trust, that you spend all this money on, are going to pitch in the playoffs, at least most of them. Yeah, Tim. So what I did with Manaea all 3 games, and I just talked about this, is that they might move Manaea an extra day because they got 2 TBDs in the Guardian series, which I'm hoping at least one of them are the prospect pitchers. At least one. Now, I don't got no reporting on that. I'm not reporting that at all. But 2 out of the 3 games are TBD. And I put Manaea for all 3 because there's a possibility the way Sproat and McLean are set up to pitch, it could be any one of these days. So that's what on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So that's why I left it like that, only to give you and say, hey, listen, Manaea's pitching at least one of these games. When, I don't know. So if I'm not mistaken, I think it's McLean, but I have not checked since 2 days ago. But again, they manipulate these guys all the time. Like, they give guys extra days off. They give guys, they'll switch them if they have too many days off. It's just, that's how it goes. So I would bring up both of these guys. Let them pitch in the TBD spots at home. Don't send them on the road thinking that it's going to help them more. Let the fan base get behind them. Fan base is going to get excited, including myself. Like, I'm going to get excited for those guys because all we did was hear about them. They've been getting better and better every single day, every start. Like, there's nowhere else to put McLean and Sproat. There's not quadruple A. Now, ultimately, they might end up there, which is basically no man's land in baseball. But give them the opportunity. Maybe we get lightning in a bottle here. Maybe we get lucky with one of them. And they perform to the point where it's like, oh, shit, we can use this guy. But that is rare, guys. Like, let's not act like it happens more often than not. Because most of the time, they don't end up being as good as they are. And now it sucks because we know David Stearns is not spending money on pitching. So, I mean, if we're going to have a couple of, like, 900 number 3 starters or worse, then what are we doing here? We're relying on guys like Sean Manaea. And David Peterson, who has 1 year left on his contract. You really think David Stearns is paying David Peterson once he's gone? If he pitches like this next year, you out of your mind. Because David Peterson's what, 30, 29? You think he's going to play a guy that's 30 years old? He's not. He already proved that. So somebody's going to give Peterson a 4 or 5 year deal if he pitches like that next year again. And he ain't doing that. Juan, I've said that forever. A true ace was important. Now, nobody can predict injuries, right? Corbin Burns was the epitome of health. The guy threw a ton of innings and was never majorly hurt. So there is no way somebody can say they can get Tommy John. You can do that to any pitcher. Why can't Sean Manaea, because he gets less money, he's not going to be a Tommy John candidate? Same thing goes for Kodai Senga, who barely pitches. What about David Peterson? Same thing. Like, we're so enamored. Oh my God, you can't give guys long-term deals because what about injuries? Like, you give short-term deal to pitchers and they don't get hurt. Like, it's not the same possibility. Like, that is how they brainwash you. They say to you it's less of a risk to have a short-term deal because of risk of injury. Again, guys, baseball has brainwashed baseball fans. I've said this forever, and I'm going to stick to it. Major League Baseball, all their owners, about analytics and why bullpens are more important and blah, blah, blah. When in 100 years of baseball, it's always been the starters that were important. That's why they used to go 8 innings. And when you used to maybe use 2 or 3 guys out of the bullpen a series. And you used to have a reliever, they used to go 2 or 3 innings when guys went 7 innings. You know why? Because starters mattered. They were important. I said this for a while. The owners are secretly colluding not to pay pitchers long-term deals. For whatever the reason it is. And I truly think it's because there's more pitchers that can get long-term deals and more money than there is position players getting long-term deals and a lot of money. They're telling you bullpens are more important, right? It's bullpen by committee. It's pitching by committee. They tell you that because they want you to believe that, and they start to brainwash you about that. No, Chester, the game has not changed. The game was manipulated by the organizations. It changed because the organizations wanted it to. There is no reason why an organization can't throw starters in the minor leagues and let them throw 95 pitches to 100 and let them go 6 or 7 innings. Like, that's the idea. Bullpens are not more important. They're telling you it's more important because they take guys out in the 3rd inning and throw 7 guys out of the bullpen and tell you it's more important because they rather have quantity over quality. It's always been, that's the way they're doing that to you. Like, that's the idea. Like, the organizations manipulated their own organizations and told you that. No, starting pitching doesn't cost too much. One starting pitcher costs too much. Not the rest of the rotation. Nobody's saying to get 3 aces on your staff and pay $300 million to 3 guys. You can pay $300 million for one guy, and then you can manipulate guys like Sean Manaea's $20 million a year. And then after that, you can go lower. Yeah, pitchers get hurt more than ever because what do? They protect them to the point where they don't pitch them enough. They don't throw them enough innings. They watch their pitch count. And then when they actually need them to throw more pitches and go more innings, that's when they get hurt. So their body's not developed into doing that. That takes time. That's why in the minors, you should build your pitchers up throughout the farm system. So when they get to the majors, you don't have to worry about pitch counts and innings limit. Yeah, Chester, that's fine. Average pitchers are getting 15 million plus. You know why? Do you know why? They rather give 50 million plus to an average pitcher than $25 million to a better, great pitcher. That is idiotic and stupid. Frankie Montas shouldn't be getting $17 million. $3 million less than Sean Manaea makes no sense. And then you can get Clay Holmes for, pennies on the dollar. Like, that's the problem. That's what they're trying to tell you. That's what they want to do. Like, we got to stop acting like the organizations didn't manipulate this for years. They were planning this for years. It's not like owners change hands very often. So you don't think they all talk about this nonsense during owners' meetings? Of course they do. Spending on bullpen is a hell of a lot cheaper than spending on starting pitching. But don't tell me that a bunch of, middle of the road pitchers get thrown into a rotation. You can automatically be like, oh, we'll be fine. Chester, bullpen guys get hurt too. Let's not act like it's but again, you don't understand how easy it is to get hurt as a starter. But they tell you short-term deals for starters is not a risk for them getting injured. It's not a risk for them. Why is it? Doesn't it hurt your team just as much? Of course it does. If Clay Holmes gets hurt, and again, he hasn't been good, but if Clay Holmes gets hurt, Chester, it doesn't matter. That they did that to save money. You don't tell me there was another pitcher on the market that wasn't a starter already, not better than Clay Holmes, because nobody knew what Clay Holmes was going to be. So you're taking a bigger risk of a guy not actually being a good starter than worrying about injury to pay a little bit more money for a guy $15, $60 million that can actually be a starting pitcher. Yes, there's a risk for everybody to get hurt. You walk into that field, you can get hurt. That has never changed. But let's not act like they didn't do this on purpose. Analytics didn't become a big thing because players wanted it. Analytics became a big thing because analytics tells a smaller story of the bigger picture. Because teams can manipulate analytics to the point where when they walk into a room in contract negotiations, they will find two analytics, not the normal stats, but two analytics that 4 people heard of in this world and says, you're not a good player. This is what you deserve. Like, that is it. That's what they do. The fact that the Mets don't have an ace is on David Stearns. Sean Manaea is not an ace, guys. He pitched well, really good last year. And then everybody was like, oh, he's an ace now. Oh, that's what we believe? That a guy that's over 30 is all of a sudden an ace. When he could be a very good pitcher, but come on. Yeah, but Chester, you can save money elsewhere. You can. You're already doing it with the bullpen. So you're telling me that it's okay to spend 10 to 12, $13 million on pitchers in the rotation, and everybody in their rotation, by the way, and that's okay for mediocre pitchers, because that's what they are. But you couldn't spend for one? Chester, there's enough to go around for good teams. Like, it's okay for the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Padres, all these other teams. Like the teams that make the playoffs, the teams that are consistently good, make the playoffs. Like, this team is good enough where you would want an ace. You want a stopper, right? A lot of the years of Jacob deGrom, there was no team around him. But there's a team around them now. So, again, if you're going to half-ass your rotation, you're going to get a half-ass result. And you've been getting that for the majority of the year. Chester, okay, but here's the problem. That's on David Stearns, right? And that's on the rest of the GMs in baseball, including the Mets past GMs. Brandon Nimmo wasn't worth what he got. You paid him as a center fielder, and now he's a left fielder. How many guys have we really paid? Like, I just, it's funny how people complain about, right? People don't want to complain about the pitching because they brainwash you into thinking that it's not about the starting pitching. So, David Stearns is probably going to bring up a top prospect pitcher to help this rotation that is healthy. So why do we need a guy in the minors that we don't know if he's going to be good or bad and come into here? Chester, I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to be mad. There's a possibility that we might have barely a 30 home run hitter at first base. So I'm not too worried about that. I am not. Like you're not talking to the biggest Alonso fan here, because again, he's another one that is the same type of player where he'll hit well for 2 months and the rest of the months he won't do well. He pads his stats for 2 months where he goes outlandishly crazy in 2 months of the season at some point during the year. No, because I know what Lindor can do consistently. I know what Juan Soto can do consistently because they've done it in their career. If you look at Pete Alonso's careers, it's a lot of 2 months and that's it. Now, I'm not telling you that Lindor and Soto's having a great season. I'm not. But there's a reason why Alonso was never considered an MVP candidate. Lindor was last year and a couple of years at Cleveland. Juan Soto consistently is an MVP candidate. Why is Pete Alonso never in that conversation? You know why? Because his months aren't very good. To be an MVP candidate, you got to have, of a 6-month season, you got to have at least 4 outstanding months. Pete Alonso never has that. He'll have 2 excellent months and then average to below average after that. So again, if you want to pay Pete Alonso $30 million over 6 years, go right ahead, or longer than that. David Stearns is not doing that. I'm telling you right now, they got a guy in Ryan Clifford that they believe in who could play first base. I'm telling you this right now. I said this 2 years ago. When they made that trade for Justin Verlander, Ryan Clifford was the big piece because the guy's a first base outfielder. They believe in Ryan Clifford. I'm telling you that right now. So if everybody believes that Pete Alonso is a lock to be on this team, you are more dumb than I thought. Because it's the same thing. Yes, it is, Mike. And again, Pete Alonso had a great game yesterday. But for the last month, him and Lindor have been the worst hitters on this team. And the worst hitters in baseball in overall stats. So they've been the problem why this team hasn't played well. And again, it's consistently with the 4 guys. You know, I wanted Mullins because he's better, or Mullins or Robert because they're better than Tyrone Taylor offensively. Better. Right? Not saying that Luis Robert or Mullins were going to be the difference maker. If you thought that, you're also dumb. And I don't think many of you thought that. And I hope you didn't. Most of you didn't. Because again, we had 1,200 to 1,500 people here on those watch party, on those trade watch parties. And not a lot of people were overly excited about Mullins or Robert Jr. Because we already know that if the top 4 guys don't perform, at least 3 out of the 4 of them at the same time, this team's not doing nothing. But that also means you can't neglect the rotation. Like, I do believe when you get into the playoffs that your offense and your bullpen, somebody needs to step up. But you're pitching that you clearly don't trust, because if you did trust them, all of these guys are healthy, right? Your whole rotation's healthy now. Yet, Stearns is talking about right after the trade deadline, a half hour after the deadline, couldn't wait to get on the mic and say, yeah, of course we can think about using our starting pitchers in the minors, our farm system guys. What? Now you're worried about that? Yeah, because people, again, the starting pitching has been so bad, other than David Peterson, and Minaya is still finding his way, that people are speaking up about it. So David Stearns couldn't wait to get on the microphone 30 minutes after. Where do we see other GMs around the league come on the mic 30 minutes after the trade deadline? Who does that? It wasn't just a, hey, let's speak to the fans. No. He was trying to save face so we can bring up right away, because the big talk of that deadline at 6:01 was the Mets didn't get a starter. So to combat that, he says, well, yeah, of course we're going to use those. We're going to think about using those prospects, pitching arms in our farm system. But he told you in June, when we needed them badly, that, they're still working on their innings and working on their game. That's what he said. So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a month later, yeah, we can use them. So all of a sudden, they're drastically different pitchers all of a sudden. The fact that he came on so quickly should even give you more evidence, the fact that he was trying to save face, because all the talk was, why the hell didn't they get a starting pitcher? One, I can agree with you with that. 100%. But you know what? Here's the other problem. Like the way you can manipulate certain things when it comes to Juan Soto is fine. It is what it is. But Alonso does come off the books next year. Don't think that isn't a possibility. Like, I'm telling you this right now. You really think David Stearns is going to give $30 million or at least $28 to $30 million for around 5, 6, maybe even 7 years for Pete Alonso when there's other teams that are going to be desperately needing first base because they were waiting for Vlad Guerrero to possibly become a free agent or even Pete Alonso if the Mets didn't sign him? And he's going to be a free agent this year. Pete Alonso is going to be a prize free agent. There isn't Vlad Guerrero on the market this time or possibly going to be a free agent than when they were probably going to wait for him and not pay who's a younger player than Pete Alonso. Like, we got to be careful. And yeah, 100% agree, Patrick, right? How are the Yankees working out? They're 7 games under 500 when they were 20-plus games over 500 with Juan Soto. So this is why you pay Juan Soto. Again, he's not having the best of years. I'll be the first to tell you that. But he does lead the league in home runs in the Mets. Right? Pete Alonso was supposed to be that guy easily. Right? And by no means, Juan Soto has to be better. Lindor has to be better. Alonso has to be better. Brandon Nimmo has to be better. Yeah, but Dola, I don't believe that because I don't think a lot of people believed in Pete Alonso. This was talked about during the home run derby a couple of years ago. Like, everybody believes that he's a doofus that is just like I truly like. Again, go look at his stats, guys. Go month by month on his stats. You're not going to count more than 2 months that were really good. Teams look at that. I'm telling you, right? There's a reason why Pete Alonso, who is looking for a long-term deal and wants $30+ million, $28 to $30 million a year in a long-term deal, yet he isn't top 3 MVP any of the years. Maybe might be like 5 or 6 or 7, but he's never in a conversation for MVP. There's a reason for that. So if you want to get paid like an MVP, perform like an MVP more often during the season. Like, go back to any one. Chester, 100%, but Juan Soto's not the only one. The big reason why the Mets were one of the worst teams that were terrible last year in April and May was because Lindor, Alonso, and Nimmo weren't hitting. The big reason. All of a sudden they started to hit in June, and look what happened. And yes, the pitching got better, but they were scoring 3 runs per game, and they ended up scoring 5 runs per game from June on, and they started to win. So yeah, it is Juan Soto who has to be better. I've said that many times. All of them have to be better. But there's a reason why Francisco Lindor is considered an MVP candidate and why Juan Soto MVP candidate nearly every year. Because they consistently do it more than 2 months. Chester, I understand that, but if you're expecting Juan Soto to be a big home run guy, and I think this is the biggest problem with Juan Soto this year. I truly think last year fucked with his head at Yankee Stadium, and it's going to take a year to adjust. Haven't I talked about a year to adjust a lot of times with players? When players leave Yankee Stadium, every one of them think they could be a 40 home run guy. Juan Soto wouldn't have been a 40 home run guy if he played somewhere else last year. He would be a 35 home run guy, which is right around his wheelhouse. Between 30 and 35, and he's going to hit around that this year. A few of those home runs that went to the running track at Citi Field or in other stadiums will be 20 rows deep in Yankee Stadium. Like, Juan Soto isn't a power hitter. He is a gap-to-gap hitter who hits for high average, and he still finds a way to get 90 to 100 RBIs with that high average, hitting 30, around 30 to 35 home runs. He's a 285, 290 hitter that consistently gives you 90 to 100 RBIs. But he's not a power hitter. He gets the majority of his RBIs and getting his average up based on hitting the ball gap-to-gap. He's a gap-to-gap hitter. But because of the backspin on his ball, he jacks out balls. Chester, I agree with you. 2 months is more than a slump. But again, I'm not just talking. I'm not saying Juan Soto hasn't. And a slump is considered very bad. He's doing that right now again, which is annoying. He's had one good month, and by no means I'm saying MVP for Juan Soto at all. He's not even close. No, Dolo, I don't think it's that. I think he's blended in better than people expected in April and May. He's blended a lot better. I truly think the fact that he played at Yankee Stadium last year, I think he got very pull happy. And again, guys, we've all played. A lot of us play baseball. When you get in your head that you get pull happy, it's very hard. I don't care if you're a professional or not. It's very hard to get adjusted to a new ballpark that you play in 81 times a year. It is huge. I agree, Chester, but Lindor and Nimmo are doing the same thing. Like, it's not just him. And I agree with you. He needs to be better. Like, he needs to be damn better. But too many people are praising Pete Alonso way too much. Right? He is supposed to be a big power guy. He has one less home run than Juan Soto. Like, Juan Soto shouldn't be leading this team in home runs. If he is, that's one of the major problems. Like, that is the major problem. That's unfortunate. Like, we forget the fact that, oh yeah, well, just I'm not saying you're not happy with Juan Soto. I agree with you. We are not winning without him, right? Pete Alonso was a disaster last year. If it wasn't for Pete Alonso, we would have never got out of the wild card round, right? So Pete Alonso hasn't played in the playoffs a lot, but has good numbers in the playoffs. Juan Soto has good numbers in the playoffs. Lindor, clutch player in the playoffs. Like, those guys perform in the playoffs with their numbers. So I expect them to do that. But at the same time, don't choose one over the other because of a contract. Like, Pete Alonso is getting $12 million a year. He's getting $30 million a year. Like, it's not chump change here. Like, this is what we're doing. Well, Chester, again, we don't know about the toe, right? Again, it's a big toe. He can be favoring that big toe and might be making something else uncomfortable. You just never know. When you have the big toe helps you balance. Right? You're constantly wearing cleats. You're constantly running. You're constantly going side to side, quick reactions. Right? That hurts. You got a broken toe. It doesn't heal in a day or two. It takes, especially if you're not laying down and putting your leg up every day, he's playing every day, it's going to take longer to heal, which he's going to favor from time to time, which probably is going to make other things annoying and probably uncomfortable. So, and again, yeah, Pete Alonso looked better yesterday. Lindor looked better yesterday. Nimmo was, Soto was, non-existent. But this is the overall problem that I'm worried about, because again, I feel like the guys who come up big and who consistently come up big in big moments, especially late in the year into the playoffs, like Lindor, like Alonso, like Soto, like, they don't just fall off the map. They've done this their entire career. Like, they've done this. Even Pete Alonso in the playoffs, when the limited opportunities he has good numbers. We know about Lindor with the Guardians and now the Mets. Juan Soto with the Nationals. Look what we did with the Yankees last year. Look at the Padres in 2022 against us. A big home run for Juan Soto. And last year with the Yankees. Like, I expect the Lindors, the Alonsos, and the Sotos to play big in the playoffs because they do that. So we have to, we will be frustrated, understandable, with what's going on. Because it's been an entire season worth of slumps by individual players where the Mets never had three guys at the same time be hot at the top of the order all year. It's been two guys at most. Most of the time, one guy. And that's hard to win, even though we have 63 wins. Like, we can literally have, we have 63 wins and the offense has still not taken off and consistently been great together, especially the four guys at the top. So And I don't think these guys don't blend well together. Again, you don't have 63 wins and lead a division if you don't blend well. Like, there would be more problems with this team, and they're probably hitting the win total. Like, I don't think they don't blend. Like, weren't we talking about that last year in the first April and May with Lindor and others, that this team don't blend well? Nobody was talking about that at the end of the season, right? Well, maybe, yeah. Look, does there have something to do with Juan Soto hitting 41 home runs last year because he was in front of Aaron Judge? But let's not act like he played his whole career in front of Aaron Judge. He didn't. His average was just as high as his career. His RBIs were around the same in his career, but his home runs were much higher. And yeah, he probably got a couple more fastballs down the middle to hit with Aaron Judge behind him. Intel why he's probably getting a couple more home runs. But I don't need Juan Soto to hit 41 home runs. That's why you have Pete Alonso. Juan Soto needs to be a 30 to 35 home run guy like he was in his career, his entire career, along with Lindor being a 25, 30 home run guy. The same thing with Nimmo being around the 25 home run guy. I think the home runs got to Juan Soto's head a little bit. And why I think his average dropped like a ton of bricks, in my opinion. Like, that is why Juan Soto isn't as good right now. Because if he was batting 285, nobody would give a shit about his home runs. I would take 3, 4 home runs less, even 5 home runs less, if he gave me 40 points more on his average, or even 30 points more on his average, and get up to a 285, 290. Why? Because that means he's hitting more with runners in scoring position. I think he's trying to hit a home run every time people are on base. And I think it messed with him because he was a Yankee at Yankee Stadium. Left-handers get way too pull happy at Yankee Stadium. And unless they're still a Yankee, they consistently have issues after the first year they leave there. Like, it's a problem. And I do think that it takes time. That for Juan Soto to go back, again, Juan Soto's not a pull hitter. Like, do we get that? This guy is an opposite field hitter. His best attribute is hitting that ball to left center field in the gap. Why? A lot of his home runs this year are pulled. Why is that? He's pulling on the ball. Why? Because he got so used to knowing that a pop-up in right field at Yankee Stadium is going over the fence. So you got very pull happy. That's very hard to fix quickly. And his best power and his best attribute is hitting the ball to left center field. He's consistently not doing that. And that's, I think, the biggest problem of why he's struggling with runners in scoring position and why his average is down 30 points from where his career average is. Yeah, but Soto, that's the thing. I'm sorry, committee. That's it's not about pulling the ball in the air. The ball is on the outside corner. Why do you think he's grounding out to second and first base and second consistently? Because he's pulling off an outside pitch. If he's driving the ball to left center, that ball's going in the gap. And he's hitting that ball hard, possibly over the fence. So, like, yeah, well, good. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's 16 home runs away from 41 last year. But again, if he gets to 40 home runs, like, everybody's already talking about the solo home runs he's hit, the majority of his home runs. Right? It's because he's trying to hit home runs every time there's people on base. And just 100%. He's a pure hitter. His best attribute is the left center field. He's a gap-to-gap hitter. He's not a big home run guy. And again, hitters talk about it all the time. When you're a lefty at Yankee Stadium, like, you get overly pull happy. Look at Mark Teixeira, right? Had a lot of good power seasons, but his average was shit at Yankee Stadium because he was overly aggressive in pulling the ball. And you're not pulling that ball. And again, the other issue is those pop-ups that Juan Soto might hit from an outside pitch, that is, lightly up in the air in right field that it might go 315, 320 are over the wall at Yankee Stadium 3 or 4 rows back. Like, that's people don't understand that. That's 5 to 6 home runs a year that you wouldn't have anywhere else except Yankee Stadium. So he's back to his normal total in retrospect. But I do think he grounds out to second base a lot because he's pulling on that outside pitch. And why do you think he's so vulnerable inside? Because he's constantly going after that pitch. Like, he's overly aggressive inside when that's not his zone. His best zone is middle away. That is where he's at his best. His hot zones this year, because of the home runs, are more middle in, which is not his game. His best game, his best attribute while at the plate is middle away, not middle in, because he's not a pure power hitter. He's a pure hitter. That's what he is. Like, you don't consistently hit 285, 290 in your career and drop down to 250 and think it's not basically pulling. And obviously he's pressing a little bit, but again, I think the big reason is he's thinking about home runs with people on base. And when you think about home runs, you're mostly trying to pull the ball. Why he grounds out to second base so much. Again, watch it today. If he doesn't drive the ball to left field, watch what he does with that outside pitch. He's consistently either just getting to it and fouling it off or rolling it over to the right side or popping it up to the right side. It's consistently what he's done all year. Yeah, exactly, Juan. And again, that's what Yankee Stadium does to you, especially if you're mostly a left-hander. Like, watch Bellinger next year. If he's not a Yankee, watch what happens. He's a pure pull hitter that is beautiful at the Yankee Stadium. Why do you think he wasn't so good for the last couple of seasons? Because he had a solid season, a decent season for the Cubs, but nothing special. He's basically the MVP of the Yankees. And yes, Soto is trying too hard, absolutely. But with trying too hard, it's because he is overly pulling on the ball, which is not his game. Why he has 25 home runs this year and the most on the team? Because when he gets the pitch that's middle in, he can drive it because he's pulling off on everything. When the majority of your home runs been to the right side, because look at the charts, the home run charts for Juan Soto over his career. Don't look at Yankee Stadium last year because that's difficult to figure out. Look at San Diego and Washington, which is obviously a bigger ballpark overall. He scatters his home run throughout from left field to right field. They're basically even most of the time. Not Yankee Stadium, but most of the time. When 95% of your home runs have been to the right side of center field this year for Juan Soto, that's just an obvious evidence that he's pulling off on everything. And he's doing that all year, along with putting pressure on himself to probably hit a home run every time people are on base. Because he is a guy that he's an RBI machine who doesn't need to hit a home run to drive in 90 to 100 runs. See, Pete Alonso probably can't hit 90 to 100 RBIs if he doesn't hit 40 home runs. He's not that. Like, Pete Alonso needs to hit home runs over the wall with people on base, which is fine. That's what a pure power hitter is. Your main job is to hit the ball over the wall. You're going to drive in those runs, right? Pete Alonso is the guy that probably would have more than 85 RBIs if he wasn't hitting 35 to 40 home runs. If he was hitting 30, he would be a very average player, and he wouldn't consider him a pure power hitter. He would be a solid player, very solid player, but not the power hitter we all know and love. And which is fine. You got to have that pure power hitter, and Pete Alonso provides that. But Juan Soto is the guy that bats 280, 290 that can hit 90 to 100 RBIs in every given year because he drives the baseball. he's a gap-to-gap hitter. He will take that base hit and drive in a run than rather hitting the ball over the wall because that's not his game. Like, look at the spray chart of his home runs. 95% of them are to the right side of center field. Not Juan Soto, man. It is. So, we got a game today. We got a rubber game. The New York Mets, once again, are wearing those City Connects, as you can see. That's why it's a purple theme here. The lineup for the Mets is Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Marte, McNeil, Vientos, Mullins, and Alvarez. A little odd that Alvarez is batting ninth and not moved up in the lineup a little bit. I would prefer Mullins to be ninth, but it is what it is. Marte's the DH. He's been hot. McNeil's in the game. Vientos at third base. See what the Mets can do. You got Carson Wisenhunt, on the mound for the Giants. You got Frankie Montas. Again, what can we expect from Frankie Montas, right? He's going to give you – he'll give you pitches, that's for sure. You know, can he give you 5 innings of 3 runs? I think we all take that. You know, I would even take 6 innings and 4 runs. I think 6 innings and 4 runs are probably more important than 5 innings and 3 runs. Why do I say that? How can you say that? It's an extra run. Well, because he gives you that extra inning. And if you notice, the Mets have been very good from innings 7 through 9. So I think if you can get to your bullpen and only throw 3 guys instead of 5 or 6, there's a better chance because there's more of a chance of more pitchers coming in and more problems happening. Like, all you need is one bullpen arm to not have a good game, and then the game gets out of hand. That's why bullpen should never be considered more important. Because there's the more likelihood that that starter is going to be more effective than 5 guys consistently in the bullpen. Because, again, if one guy messes up, it can shit on the bed late in the game. So, and haven't the Mets have been doing it all year where they've been getting to teams' bullpens late, yet the starters come out of the game 5 or, you know, those 6 innings of 1-run baseball, and that pitcher didn't even win the ball game? The Mets have consistently done that later in games against the bullpen. So, let's see. Yeah, I mean, not a lot of people like Frankie Montas, but again, you know, take away the salary for a second. Frankie Montas should be your 4th to 5th starter, where the 4th to 5th starters are usually not great. Right? They're guys that will give you 5 innings, 3 or 4 runs, occasionally 6, because you're not worried about their pitch count. So you can probably throw 95 to 100 pitches. So you might get him through a 6th inning if he's not overly putting people on base. So Frankie Montas, give me 6 innings, 4 runs. Give me 5 innings, 3 runs. I think we'll be perfectly fine. Because the Mets have shown to get to teams' bullpens. So get it done. I will be doing a post game today. Whenever the game is over, I will be there. I'll see if I can get somebody else on. I got to talk to Zach. I don't think Chris is available. I might get Zach on. I haven't spoke to these guys. It's been a little crazy after the trade deadline, like trying to get some sleep and working a little bit more. But we'll get in touch with those guys to see what's going on with them and see what's going on. But Mets have a chance to win a series here. The Mets can contain control over first place, possibly more of control as they're a half game up right now. Phillies lose, Mets win. We're a game and a half up with 51 games to play after today. Let's see what they can do, guys. Montas, Wisenhunt on the mound. We got Vientos playing third. Alvarez batting ninth. Top 4 guys are the top 4 guys. You see what happens when the guys at the top do their job, they score 12 runs. So with that said, guys, thank you for tuning into the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channel and on X. I will see you post-game, hopefully talking about a Mets win. And, of course, for my boy Chris, spamming those W's in the chat. And I'll see you guys in a few hours, guys. Enjoy the game, and let's go, Mets.
Seven train rumble, headed to the field. Orange and blue vibes, the energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, rep